All right. So, as I mentioned earlier in the show, this is not going to be our typical politics segment. I'm not going to bring up the whiteboard this week. We're going to have a meditation. So, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about some victories this week. Then, I'm going to talk about the piece of important news that I'm going to be reflecting on during my meditation. I think a lot of us are reflecting on right now in the United States. I know that that the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is being widely watched throughout the world. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But first, I want to start this because this is meant to be a healing episode, a feel-good episode. I want to start with some victories. So we had three major labor victories this week that I want to talk about. The first one comes to us from India, where I don't know if you've been following this, but for a very long time, farmers from rural India have marched to New Delhi and have staged a protest camp, even to the point of creating their own little governing body while they were there of farmers. And they were protesting a series of bills which did a whole bunch of things, but would essentially introduce the corporatization angle into Indian farming. And there were concerns amongst the farmers that they would be essentially outcompeted in their own land, that they would lose their livelihoods, and that the government would no longer guarantee prices for their crops, which had been something that the government had been doing for a long period of time, helps keep it sustainable. We do it in the United States, by the way. Dairy is a great example of an industry that is essentially entirely supported by government money. There aren't enough sales of milk, and milk isn't really milk and cheese and all those things don't really do well enough in the marketplace to compete kind of on their own. So the government guarantees a floor for money. I believe it's either called the milk board or the dairy board. Anyway, in the United States, this is a thing that happens. So the government guaranteeing prices for a set of goods is not a new concept by any means. But earlier this week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India announced that he will be, quote, following the constitutional process to repeal these three laws. So that's just a promise. We have to see what happens. And the farmers are wise to this. They have promised that they will not leave New Delhi and they will not leave their campsites until the bills are fully repealed. So it's a bit of a victory, right? Nothing's set in stone yet, but the farmers are there. They're making their presence known continually, but they did cede a victory from the government, who is now promising to give them what they want in the form of these bills being repealed. Great news. The next labor story comes from the John Deere Corporation. Recently, I think also this week, John Deere workers went back to work. There were 10,000 John Deere workers striking. They were striking against a two-tiered incentive system, also the revocation of their free at the point of service and delivery healthcare, which they had been guaranteed from their union contract. The new union contract that they have just ratified gives them $8,500 a piece as a sign-on bonus, as in from the for the ratification of the contract. Each of them gets a bonus of that. And over the life of the agreement, which is 6 years, there will be 20% in increases, including a 10% immediate pay raise. So amazing news. When workers fight, they win, okay? And the last piece of really good news I have for you is actually not the ending of a strike, but actually the calling off of a strike. So I don't know if you've been following this, but there's been a big row in the healthcare company Kaiser Permanente. They are a California-based company that does healthcare. They have a bunch of facilities. I think the nearest one to me is in Washington, D.C., but there's a lot of them around the country, but especially in California. And what they were trying to do was introduce a two-tier payment system so that if you had worked for Kaiser before the implementation of this system went into place, you would have accelerated benefits, you would get better pay and things like that. And by the way, part of that has to do with if you're in the union, you get these, or you got these from a certain point. And anyone who's new would not get these benefits. They'd come in with much lower pay. And there seems to be some sense amongst the Kaiser workers that this was going to be something that was fairly obvious to people, and they saw it kind of as union busting, collective action busting idea from Kaiser management. So they did not stand for it. They threatened to strike, and the strike date was actually coming up very shortly. I think it was next week. I think the strike date was like end of the month. But it turns out management has backed down. They are not going to implement this two-tiered pay structure, and they are going to, give bonuses as well. So a great showing from lots of workers around the world. Congratulations, especially to the farmers in India and the John Deere strikers. And again, of course, to those who were about to strike in Kaiser Permanente, we salute you. It's definitely a very difficult thing to agree to strike. Striking is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. You're not working for long periods of time in order to force management into an agreement that they don't want to be in. And they have a lot more resources than you. A good example of this is the John Deere strikers were actually surviving off of $275 per week, which was their strike allowance from the union. So, that's a lot less than they were making. It's very difficult to survive off of that, right? You have to put your family and yourself through a lot of pain and suffering, but in the end, you can win if you hold strong. So, congratulations to all the workers who won victories this week or upcoming week. Very excited about that. And hey, it's another reminder that when labor fights, labor can win. The only way we've ever gotten change in this capitalist system, regardless of what the politicians tell you, regardless of the great laws that get passed, is labor power. So just more examples of how that continues to be true in the modern era. When workers fight together, they win together, and they win against powerful management. So really proud of them. Good job, guys. If any of you see this video, give yourselves a pat on the back. You really deserved it. So I wanted to start with that because it's just kind of it's a good feeling, especially if you're on the left. We need some victories, right? It's always very hard being on the left. Anywhere in the world, it feels like the deck is stacked against you. And this week, especially, has felt like that too. So if you're in the United States or if you're watching from outside the United States, Jacob Blake was an individual in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He was driving in his car with his kids when he saw a fight in his community. He got out of the car to help break up the fight, and then police showed up. And things just went downhill from there. There were misunderstandings between the police and the other people who were involved, and then a police officer. And then as Jacob Blake attempted to walk away from the situation with his hands in the air, there's film of this. I'm not going to show it or link to it. It's just very heartbreaking. He was shot 7 times in the back as he was going into his car in front of his children. That caused protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and that is where Kyle Rittenhouse shows up because he crossed state lines from Illinois to go and be and join the Boogaloo Boys or whatever fucking stupid name they've got now, the right-wing militia people who were there to defend property, which is find excuses to shoot people. And lo and behold, he did shoot and kill people. Now, he was on trial in the United States, and that trial has recently concluded. The judge dismissed the only 2 charges that he admitted to, which, this judge was definitely in the tank for Kyle Rittenhouse. But, we don't get a second bite of the apple here. Justice is lost. Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted on all counts today, Friday, as I film this. So, obviously, this is a painful thing. It's a painful thing for me to talk about. And one of the reasons I wanted to have a healing episode was because this was so painful, because this was so watched, because, there's so many implications here. And I'm not going to talk about them. There are plenty of pundits out there who are talking about what the practical implications of this adjudication is. But that's not what I'm here for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a stool here. And if you'll join me, I'm going to walk you through my favorite meditation. I personally find that meditation is a really powerful tool for helping people relax, or for helping me relax for helping me understand my place in the world, to really ground myself, to remove myself from the pains and traumas of the world, and to heal, when I'm really not doing well, to heal. So I'm kindly asking for all of you to join me today in this meditation. If you want to put on some piano music or just some light um, atmosphere, please feel free to do that. Whatever you think would put you in kind of a peaceful mood. I'm going to do this in silence, but I'm going to be walking you through this. So we're going to do this together. So if you can, if you're in a stool or a chair, just sit down somewhere. Make sure your posture is good. Keep your shoulders back, your back nice and flat if you can. Obviously, if anything's painful for you, don't do it. And then you're going to find a position where your fingers can be touching. So I like to do this, a cupping motion where my thumbs are touching. You can hold your hands in prayer, any kind of way. Just make sure that your fingers or your thumbs are touching, right? Create a connection in your body as we go through this kind of mindful, almost spiritual exercise together. Okay, so I'm going to do this with my eyes closed. You don't have to, but I find it helps me get in the zone to do that. And as we start, I'm going to keep my eyes open for this. We're just going to take deep breaths. Just start to just let your body come down and start to think about releasing that stress, right? We're not doing it just yet, but and you can actually feel as you do this, and as your eyes are closed and you're getting into the zone that meditation takes you to, you actually feel your body start to come down, to relax a little bit. You'll feel your jaw will be a little tight. You'll feel there are tightnesses in your body. As you breathe deeply, you'll start to release those. And make sure that breath is really getting to the bottom of your lungs too. All right. So we're about to get started. So I want you to imagine that you are actively moving energy through your fingers. Okay, we're going to start in your fingers. You can wiggle them if it helps you kind of make that mind-body connection. But we're going to start in our fingers, and we're just going to concentrate all of our energies, our personal energies, whatever you want to call it, chakra, chi, ki, whatever. Just focus on getting out the stress from just the tips of your fingers. And slowly, as you feel that stress start to release, move down the tips of your fingers to your palm. And by the way, you can move slower than me, you can move faster than me. If you know this routine, you know where I'm going. Feel free to spend as much or as little time on each part of your body as you want. From our palms, we're moving into our wrists. Just imagine the stress, forcing that stress out of your wrists. Meanwhile, keep your posture good. Keep your back flat. Keep those breaths nice and deep. We're going to move from our wrists now to our forearms. That's a large area, so feel free to move nice and slow through there. We're moving on to our elbows. And now to just below our shoulders. Just that arm muscle. Focus on getting the stress out of that arm muscle. And I'm holding my arms in the air, but you don't have to if it's uncomfortable for you, or You find it doesn't relax you to do it this way, just lean on something. It's all right. All right, now we're going to move to our shoulders. And we're going to spend a lot of time here because your shoulders actually carry a lot of that stress. That we have sayings about it in English and in different languages too, about carrying the world on your shoulders, taking a weight off your shoulders. And that weight is stress. So we're just going to carefully and slowly feel our way through our shoulders. You can even move them around if you want, right? Feel free for any of this. If you have an area where you feel like there's a lot of stress, and you want to move around to make that mind-body connection, feel free to do that. All right, now we're going to move up the back of our, we're going to move up our neck now. Just feel free to move that neck around. Now we're going to move up to our chin, into our jaw. Make sure your jaw isn't clenched. Your jaw is nice and relaxed. Just envision all that negative energy leaving your jawbone, leaving your neck. And we're going to move up into those cheekbones. So just relax those cheekbones. Remember to take nice, deep breaths. And just sit here and breathe. We're going to move up to your forehead. Feel free to stick around your nose or your cheekbones if that's where you have stress. Now we're going to focus really hard on just actively pressing that stress, all of the stress in our facial muscles out through our foreheads. For me, it helps to visualize like a negative energy just leaving my forehead. I find that's really helpful to get my mind in a good place. Now we're going to make our way to the top of our heads, the very top of our heads. I'm going to let that stress just escape through the top of our heads. And it helps to have your posture up too, because you envision that a string is holding you straight up and down. And then whenever you're ready, very slowly, we're going to start to work our way down our spine, down our spinal column from the brain, from the skull. Just work our way down, vertebrae by vertebrae. And we're just going to release that stress. Try not to think of anything else except for the focusing on getting rid of that negative energy. I know we have a lot on our minds. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this. And hopefully teaching you how to do it too. And you can do this anywhere, on the couch, on the floor. You can even do this in bed. Any place you find rest and peace. So as we work down each vertebrae, just slowly imagining each one, We're also going to push simultaneously out our chest, out of our ribs, focusing on making each one of those breaths count. And using that force of breathing to push that energy, that negative stress energy just out of your body, through your chest and through your spine. And work your way down your spine, any speed you want. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And slowly, as you feel that stress energy escape, just feel free to move around. You know, stress wells up in you in ways that it's sometimes hard to tell unless you're actively looking for it. So just push that out and work down. And the back is a place where a lot of stress is, guys. So spend as much time here as you need. If I'm going too fast or too slow, you can do this at your own pace. And whenever you're ready, just move down to your tailbone. And your pelvis area. Just push stress out of there. Just a little bit of focusing on your butt there too. And then we're going to start pushing that energy down to our upper thigh. And then we're going to work our way through our whole thigh here. And then we're going to make our way to our knees. And there's a lot of stress here too. You're going to feel it. It's going to take some time for you to get through here, and that's okay. That's all right. And then when you're ready, we're going to push through those calves. And just continue to push that energy down and out. I like to do this with my feet on the floor, but if, having your toes touching or doing like a butterfly makes this more spiritual for you or makes this more relaxing for you or peaceful, or even just laying down, right, if you're doing this in bed or on a couch, do what's most peaceful for you. And then we're just going to push down into those feet. And we're going to spend a lot of time here. I'm going to push through each part of that foot. Our feet support us. They hold a lot of our stress. So feel the stress around that ankle and just push it away. You'll move your ankles a little bit to facilitate that mind-body connection. You're welcome to do so. I'm going to push down into that heel. Just push the stress out of there. Just focus on your heel. All right, we're going to move through the bridge of your foot, through that arch there. Slowly pushing that stress forward towards the toes. Not there yet, so just take your time. All right, now we're going to arrive at those toes. So, two real ways to do this. You can try pushing out your energy from all your toes at once. Or, if it is easier for you to do, just because all this energy, right, we've moved all this energy right now to our toes. We have to give the final push, final focus to get that negative energy out of our bodies. So if you need to do one toe at a time, I recommend starting with your big toe and working to your smaller toes. If you want to just push all that energy out your toes, feel free. You're focusing on sending that energy into the floor and away from you, right? We've just spent all this time pushing our body's negative energy all the way through from our fingertips, all the way through our head and down our chest, thighs, knees, calves, and now it's all down our feet. We pushed it from our ankles and heels through the arch. So all this stress, all this negative energy is just sitting in your toes right now. So just take those deep breaths, take your time. And just let that energy go. Push it into the floor. Now, the gentleman who taught me how to do this meditation had a gong that he would use at the end of his meditations to bring us back to reality. So if you have some instrument that you can play to kind of break your concentration, something that is loud but isn't disturbing, feel free to use that. Or if you don't need it, just come back to us whenever you're ready. Slowly lower your hands. Disconnect your fingers. You actually feel the energy that you had there as your hands disconnect. And slowly open your eyes whenever you're ready. So this is going to be the end of our politics portion today. Whatever time is left, we're just going to jump cut towards where we have our bread. We're going to do our shaping. We're going to form our bread into 16 rolls. And I hope that this meditation session, that this kind of healing session was helpful to you. I hope it puts you in a place where you're at ease, where you're happy and comfortable, where you're at peace. And whatever you need to do to cope with the things that have happened this week and to cope with the Rittenhouse trial, I hope I could help you find that. But if there are things that you need to do, take the time and just be at peace. Find your spiritual center, whatever that might be. Meditate. I've now taught you my favorite meditation. I use it for, a lot of times when I'm stressed. It can be a very emotional experience too to meditate like that, to really focus on your own well-being. So Thank you for engaging in meditation with me. Thank you for healing with me. And we're going to cut to the shaping of our rolls.
Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you liked it, throw a like on it, share with your friends, and subscribe for more of our content. You can also find all of our videos and clips on youtube.com. Just search Let Them Eat Bread and you'll find all of our content. Alright guys, see you next time. Bye for now.